With the plethora of animated shows that exist, it's not surprising that tons of people have created their own best cartoon father lists over the years. Lots of these rankings share the same contenders, but that just speaks to how well done certain TV dads are. Many of them have qualities that make them likable and make us happy to see them on our screens. I get that best animated dad is going to be subjective. I'm not trying to argue that the dad I'm thinking of is better than everyone's top pick, but he deserves a seat at the table. I see your Bob Belchers and your Heinz Diefenschmertzes, and I raise you one Dr. Jonathan Katz. For the purposes of this video, I will be using Dr. Katz, Jonathan, and or John interchangeably. I'm only talking about the character, not the actor on whom he's based. With the formalities out of the way, let's begin. Jonathan Katz is a single dad to his grown son, Ben. At the start of the show, Ben's mother has already been out of the picture for about 10 years. We learn in snippets throughout the series that Ben's childhood was lonely, if a bit unstable, and that his parents' divorce left him with emotional trauma. Despite those circumstances, he and his father have a great relationship. So what makes Dr. Katz so special? The biggest traits that make him a good father share one common, crucial thing: safety. Dr. Katz is a good parent, and he is a safe parent. Now, I'm going to simplify the hell out of this so that I don't info dump for an hour, but generally speaking, the nature of a parent-child bond during one's early years will set the stage for their adult life. A child who feels safe with their caregivers is more likely to grow up with a secure attachment to them and to others. I know that lots of other factors play into this, and different outcomes may occur depending on a family's circumstances and access to support. Again, I'm just speaking broadly. I've rambled enough. Let's get into the top 5 reasons why I think Dr. Katz is one of the best animated dads out there. Jonathan and Roz's tumultuous marriage ended on a bitter note. He harbors major resentment towards her, but he doesn't let that affect Ben. In the book Dr. Katz's Me at a Glance, which is based on the animated series, we can read some scathing scrapped letters to Roz. I mention the book as supporting evidence, but it gives serious insight into how deeply that divorce really hurt. And not just that, if you read the entire thing, both letters, you learn that there was pain before everything blew up. I think that was a given, though. Anyway, the rocky relationship is mentioned a few times throughout the show's run, as are the ways it affected Ben. We see Dr. Katz vent to his friends about Roz, but never with Ben. He'll joke about her being the ugly part of the divorce with Stanley and Julie.
Did you guys have an ugly divorce?
She was.
But he holds his tongue when his son is around. He does have a couple of Freudian slips, especially in the episode Real Estate, but I mean, come on. He thought the person he hated was staying over at his house.
You said hated pool, and then you said my house.
Ben.
Keeping your social filter in a situation like that would be hard.
But you said hated because we were talking about Mom.
He playfully jokes about her at the end of the Thanksgiving episode, but I don't see that as vindictive or mean.
Roz.
Dad.
Go back to Oz. Baby Roz. Where? In Oz. That's a song I wrote called Go Be Roz in Oz.
This episode is the only time Roz appears, and both Dr. Katz and Ben seem to be on eggshells for some of it. I think it makes sense that they'd let off some steam after she left. Nothing about Jonathan's tone or attitude seems bitter here, and he doesn't actually say anything insulting about Roz to Ben. And I mean, okay, Ben's also 25 at this point, and he knows his dad is just kidding, so I think this is fine. Dr. Katz also tells Ben that he was really happy to see the two interacting as adults, suggesting that Ben and his mother can improve their bond in the future.
You know what I am happy about is that you are going to, clearly are going to have a relationship with your mother as an adult.
Ben also keeps semi-regular contact with his mother. He talks to her on the phone in a few episodes, and the conversations seem positive from what little we're shown.
I love you more. Of course. Don't play this game. Don't. No, you're the most fantastic person on the planet.
He doesn't generally rush to hang up when his dad walks in, and he doesn't hide who he's been talking to. Well, except in the episode Real Estate, but Ben immediately tells the truth after and realizes that his father isn't upset.
Obviously, is that an old girlfriend? Or?
That was Mom.
How is she?
She's well.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Ben knows that it's safe for him to talk about his mom, and he and Jonathan do talk about her sometimes throughout the show. He also knows more about what Roz is up to than Jonathan does, but that makes sense. Jonathan and Roz do not talk, and she actually shuts down Ben's offer to pass the phone to his dad.
Well, didn't she want to say hi to me or anything?
No.
It's uncertain what kind of parent Roz was, but I don't think her relationship with Ben was as secure as the one between Jonathan and Ben. I say this because Ben seems to have a little bit of anxiety throughout the series. It's not obvious, but we do get little bits and pieces of the anxiety that he has about his mother.
You tell me an idea for a title, I'll rate it on a sliding scale, 1 to 10.
Okay, 10 being the best?
10 being the best, 1 being the worst.
Alrighty. What did we do to make Mommy go so far away?
That's a 2.
Okay.
And, of course, there's the fact that he spent the rest of his youth growing up without her. We don't know if he even spent much time with Roz after she left. Ben never mentions living with her or having court-ordered visits or anything like that. And we know that most of their contact is just on the phone, rather than in person. Jonathan even says outright that Roz abandoned Ben.
And where was Roz during all of this?
He, for some reason or other, will defend his mother. He'll defend her till the end, you know? When in fact, she abandoned him. That's the story.
And he's misplacing his anger.
To me, this implies that she didn't visit or do much co-parenting, if any. Abandoned is a pretty strong word, and I don't know, just from watching this show over and over again for years, I don't really think it's part of Dr. Katz's character to exaggerate, at least on something that serious. I think when he says that Roz abandoned Ben, he means it. The fact that Ben does not outright hate his mother, like Jonathan does, shows that Jonathan worked really hard to express these feelings elsewhere rather than dumping all of his pain onto his son. That would have been a monumental task in the early years after the divorce, especially with the whole abandonment thing. I have to commend Dr. Katz for not alienating Ben from his mother, no matter how ugly she and the divorce were.
And you know, when I served her with the papers, you know what she said?
What?
Nice presentation.
I touched on this briefly in another video, so check that out when this one's done. But Dr. Katz takes his role as a father very seriously. A parent never stops being a parent just because the kids are grown, and Dr. Katz is a great representation of this. Ben got rejected by the new tenant? His dad's there to soften the blow. Ben needs his wisdom teeth pulled? No problem, Dad's gonna be there to help him recover. Never mind the fact that Ben is, 25 years old at this point in the series. Dr. Katz has an undeniable paternal instinct. In the episode Wisdom Teeth, Ben ends up in serious pain. He goes to his father multiple times for comfort, even waking him at 4 in the morning.
Dad, I can't live anymore. I mean, the life's gotta end.
Instead of being annoyed, Dr. Katz actually sympathizes with Ben, not realizing the huge mistake he made with his son's care, but more on that later. When Ben hands him the nail file and asks his dad to
Kill me with it. I mean, just start filing for the nails and keep going until I am just dust.
Dr. Katz calmly explains to Ben that he'll be okay and that there's still hope for the future. He knows Ben is exaggerating due to the pain, but he validates his feelings anyway. Not many people would be so calm and understanding that early in the morning.
Don't touch me!
Okay.
Dr. Katz is always looking out for Ben's well-being, to a point that some viewers might argue is coddling. And I think I kind of agree. Dr. Katz is not a helicopter parent. I wouldn't call him that. I don't think I'd go that far. But he does fuss over Ben a lot. He's allowed his son to stay comfortable at home until past the usual age that grown children move out. He doesn't set many limits, and he doesn't enforce very strong boundaries, and he lets Ben get away with a lot of shenanigans. A lot.
You said don't use it.
Right. Why would you do a thing like that?
What do you mean, use it?
Yeah.
Fun.
We're getting into speculative territory now, but here's why I think this is. Dr. Katz is overcompensating. He's trying to make up for Ben's difficult childhood. We've talked enough about Jonathan and Roz's marriage and how dysfunctional things were. You can hear more about that in my Dr. Katz's relationships video, and I'll leave the link in the description for you. In the Thanksgiving episode, Jonathan and Roz have a tense moment that thankfully diffuses.
I'm sorry. It was a lovely dinner. He's a lovely boy. You did a lovely job. I'm sorry I went away. There's nothing I could even say.
But what if those moments boiled over into fights when they were married? Ben could have been exposed to his parents fighting before he was even old enough to remember. He didn't have siblings, and it's implied a few times that Ben didn't have many friends as a kid. There probably weren't a lot of healthy families or even other people close enough to him to set a different example, and he grew up to develop complications from life in a dysfunctional home. Children's brains are sponges. They notice everything, regardless of whether they understand it, and they'll take on the general vibe, I guess, of their household. Even if you don't think your kid is old enough to remember something, some part of them will. The body always remembers. The subconscious remembers. Some part will remember. Kids who grow up in homes filled with conflict and other dysfunction can develop serious issues over time. These can include depression, anxiety, stress, or becoming withdrawn. That's not an exhaustive list, but these seem to be the most common outcomes for people like Ben. And let's look at Ben for a second. He's definitely shy and socially withdrawn. He struggles with his self-esteem, usually regarding his weight. He's often afraid to commit to goals and see things through, especially if it requires a lot of mental effort. He's creative and he has big ideas, but he lacks the confidence to leave his comfort zone, and he lacks the executive functioning skills to take the required action. His relationships are few, each with a vastly different attachment style. And his outlook on life is, I'm gonna say, ambivalent, often shifting from hopeful to completely defeated. My point is, Ben's childhood stress hurt his development, and Dr. Katz knows it. He's a psychiatrist. Professional therapist is literally right there in the title. He knows his son is anxious and emotionally stunted, and he knows exactly why. By giving Ben most of his time and attention, and by being so lenient with him, maybe Dr. Katz thinks he can atone for what happened in Ben's childhood. He even admits that Roz was the authoritarian and that when she left there were
no more limits.
No more limits. Anything goes. I love it.
I'm going to speculate some more, mostly because we don't get to see many flashbacks from Ben's childhood. We don't see Roz more than just the Thanksgiving episode, and we don't know much about the Katz family's early life, really. Anyway, limits and consequences are necessary for a child's development, but what if Roz's approach was a little too cold? I think she loves Ben, and she probably did her best, but maybe it was one of those things where she was emotionally neglectful, basically ignoring her son unless he was in trouble. It makes what she says to Jonathan in the Thanksgiving episode a bit more interesting.
And you don't notice when I do, you only notice when I don't. There is no reward with you. There's simply non-punishment. Dogs are trained better.
I think she's projecting here. With the problems in her marriage and personal life, there's a chance she didn't have the emotional bandwidth to give Ben the attention he needed, or to even notice that he needed it. Maybe there was no reward with Roz either, but instead of non-punishment, it was maybe a little too much punishment, or maybe it was only punishment. I don't know, but it would maybe explain why Ben is kind of the way he is. Jonathan was probably aware of this, so he worked to compensate for her lack of attention to Ben, hence the coddling.
We did have some good times, but I do owe you.
You owe me 3 or 4 years that I lost.
I can't imagine the effort it must take for a single parent to play the role of 2 adults. Absolute props to the single parents out there. And back to the show, absolute props to Dr. Katz for making that work and for helping Ben to grow up to be a good and sort of mostly adjusted person.
Did you sleep in your clothes last night? Are these the same clothes you had?
Chad, think of an animal from 1 to 10.
Jonathan is doing the best he can with the skills he has, even when, hey, he's got his own problems. Could he be firmer with his son? Yes. Does he need to have more confidence in his parenting choices? Also, yes. He's not perfect, but he always means well with Ben. As a viewer, I like seeing that. In every episode, we see Dr. Katz make a point to love his kid, and I think that's the best intention a parent can have. For Dr. Katz, loving Ben means holding an incredible amount of space for him. And that's not even a fat joke, I'll leave that to Laura. I mean that Jonathan gives his son room to grow, allowing him to make mistakes and learn from them. He also wants Ben to step out of his comfort zone, whether that means encouraging him to go on a date or letting him pursue a doomed rideshare startup.
I'm not mad at you, Ben, if that's any comfort to you. I'm a little disappointed. I think it was a great idea, but you know what? Maybe it's something you can come back to at a different time in your life.
Ben's failures are met with empathy and understanding, even if an "I told you so" would be justified. I said earlier that Ben has some big ideas. His dad lets him explore these ideas and try stuff. Some of Ben's aspirations throughout the series include being an entrepreneur, a baker, a comedian, and a best-selling author. While these goals aren't necessarily impossible, they can't pan out if Ben doesn't act.
See, the problem is, Ben, you're waiting for something to happen. You have to go out there and make something happen.
Ben has a pretty tight comfort zone.
Why? Ben, this is a great place
Because
for
you
you
like
and I.
social stuff. I'm not thrilled about it.
Taking steps like going back to college or applying for a job are difficult for him. Dr. Katz knows this, and he encourages Ben to sign up for adult education and look for work regardless, because he knows it will be good for his son's growth. His efforts are usually met with resistance from Ben, but Jonathan doesn't give up. He's persistent, but in a way that's still gentle enough to reach Ben. That's not to say that Jonathan is cool with Ben just coasting and staying unemployed forever. There are times when Ben's spending habits and lack of job really bug Dr. Katz. Yet Dr. Katz doesn't push his son into the workforce, and he doesn't give him ultimatums. He gives Ben the wide, wide world speech, not the shape up or ship out one.
Not this speech again.
His approach, like I'd mentioned earlier, is one of persistent encouragement rather than brute force.
3 wide, wide world speeches you've given me.
There's wide, wide world speech number 4. I'm working on it.
If he could develop the confidence to stick by his boundaries, Dr. Katz could be more effective in Ben finally growing up. I really wish the show could have had a few more seasons because I'd have loved to watch Ben come out of his shell more. I feel like around season 5 or 6, Ben does start to explore outside the bounds of his comfort zone, and we do see him interact with people other than just Laura and his father. Jonathan is very forgiving with his son, which is, I think, significant when you think about some of the cartoon dads out there. Jonathan is slow to anger, so it's a bit surprising when he does finally lose his crap on Ben. And even then, it's pretty tame compared to how most parents might react in the same situation, especially cartoon parents. I'm talking about the episode Big TV.
Can you shut the thing off for 1 second?
Dr. Katz gets mad when Ben uses his credit card to buy an expensive television after their old set dies.
You must have heard about the new TV, huh?
Yeah, I heard about it.
Plus, my dad was a little upset about it.
I think it's one of Dr. Katz's angriest moments on the show. And if it's not his angriest moment, it's definitely the angriest that we've seen him be at Ben. Yet he doesn't get violent, he doesn't scream and yell, he doesn't threaten to kick out Ben. Instead, he's honest about his feelings.
He just wasn't particularly into it, especially the cost of it and the size of it and how he felt it ruined the apartment.
He doesn't feel like talking to Ben while he's angry.
Hey, can you do me a favor, Laura?
Yeah?
Can you ask Ben what he would like for dinner? Tell Ben that I think we can afford 1 chicken pot pie.
Dad, don't do this.
We could
He
tell...
can't hear you, Ben. Would you like to share a chicken pot pie with your father this evening?
But it's not for punishment.
But Laura, tell my dad that I'm not going to play this game with him. I'm going to talk directly to him.
He's not purposely giving Ben the cold shoulder to make him feel bad.
I'm walking out, and I'm keeping the TV, all right?
Tell Ben not to leave in a huff.
He just doesn't want to say anything hurtful in the heat of the moment. That's why he doesn't want to speak directly to Ben for a portion of this episode.
Dad.
He can't hear you.
Laura, please, just wait.
Tell Ben that I can't hear
Dad,
him while
wait.
he owns that TV.
Wait.
Ben, he can't hear you while you own that TV.
Dad.
Yeah.
Look me in the eye.
Oh.
Look me in the eye and tell Laura to shut up.
Of course, he eventually forgives Ben and they work things out.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for doing the right thing. I'm proud of you, and it makes me feel good.
I don't think Dr. Katz would have tried working things out if, say, Laura had done that. He lets Laura get away with a lot too, but I think he would draw the line and fire her if she'd taken a couple grand from him or bought something that expensive for the office without consent. Same with recurring characters like Dom Irera, who's basically the human version of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Above everyone else, I'm glad Dr. Katz has the longest fuse with Ben. Another episode that shows Dr. Katz's extreme patience for his son is Walk for Hunger. He tells Ben to stretch and warm up in the days before the charity walk.
I wish you would start doing some stretches, Ben. I'm worried about you, that's all. Do some very gentle stretching. You need to do some stretching not so gentle.
Of course, Ben doesn't, and the walk becomes a nightmare for him. Dr. Katz knew this was going to happen, so he spent his evening to find Ben. And when he does find him, he's more concerned about how his son is feeling rather than what lesson he learned. When he realizes that Ben is generally okay physically, he encourages him to keep going.
Hey, only 5 more miles to go.
No, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead at 15.
See, I think that would be a big mistake, because you've come this far, you've given this much.
Ben is about to admit defeat when Laura shows up on her own to find him.
Hey, there you are.
Laura.
I was wondering what happened to you.
Now, Dr. Katz probably would have relented and said, you know what, Ben, fine. If you feel like you can't do this, that's okay, let's go home.
You don't have to finish it. I would be just as proud of you if you quit.
Really?
Well,
then
maybe not quite as proud.
But he still gave Ben that option. Here's what I love the most about this scene. Not only does Dr. Katz encourage Ben to finish the last few miles of the walk, he actually walks the rest of the way with Ben. He didn't have to, but he chose to. Dr. Katz lets Ben face natural consequences, such as with the Walk for Hunger. Ben ended up getting quite sick at some point in the race, and probably suffered major muscle and bone pain in the days following the charity walk. But Dr. Katz helps him through it, and I see this as a major act of patience. It shows that he's okay with the emotional labor that goes into helping his son learn tough lessons, no matter how uncomfortable it probably makes both of them feel. The best part is he's so quick to forgive Ben and move on whenever Ben makes a mistake. No matter how ridiculous some of Ben's life lessons are.
You know, Dad, I really feel like I learned a lesson, and that is don't nail your shoes to the floor.
Ben knows his dad will help him.
I feel like I'm aging right in front of my own eyes.
Dr. Katz will help his son through these tough life lessons, will not give him the I told you so, will not make him feel stupid. In fact, he just says, basically, that's okay, you learned from it, let's move on.
Just tell me the first thing.
Emergency brake.
Okay, just wanted to hear you say it. Okay, I will not bring it up again.
He shows Ben that it's safe to go out of the comfort zone, even if something doesn't work out. He knows that his father is never going to judge him or make him feel like an idiot for trying. Saying sorry and admitting one's mistakes is hard, but it's important. Jonathan makes a few mistakes with Ben on this show, and we'll talk about a big one in a minute. What makes him a good dad, though, is the fact that he owns up to it when he's wrong, no matter how embarrassing it is.
A boy, a bike, a heart so full, a mom, and a dad, and a little stuffed bull. Oh God, what have I done? Ben?
Dad.
Will you forgive me, please?
Yes. Yeah. Right away.
Is there some way I can make it up to you?
Show's up there, folks.
This is largely thanks to Jonathan's good nature, but also to the self-awareness he's cultivated through therapy. You see, Dr. Katz actually has his own therapist, Dr. Greenberg. We only see Dr. Greenberg in the episode Guess Who, and he's talking on the phone with Jonathan. But it's cool seeing that not only does a therapist go to a therapist, but that a parent is going to a therapist and talks to this therapist about his son and how he can, navigate Ben's choices, how he can navigate Ben's adulthood and the effects of the childhood on his son. Now, do we hear him talk to his therapist specifically about that? Not necessarily, but we know he talks about Ben an awful lot to his therapist. Otherwise, his therapist would not say this.
Ben, Ben is a real pain in the ass.
In the episode Guess Who, Jonathan is overcome with guilt after cheating at a board game with Ben. He knew right away he shouldn't have done it, even if the winning Guess Who card was visible in the reflection in the TV screen.
Ben, is your guy Franz?
Many people wouldn't see this as a big deal, but the thought of lying to his son made Jonathan feel awful. The fact that Ben is a grown man in this situation makes this episode so much funnier, since Ben probably wouldn't be devastated by something like that at his age. But I love how it just shows how wholesome Dr. Katz is. The smallest infraction, cheating at a board game, even though Ben kinda accidentally made it obvious what the winning card was, just made him feel like such hot, fiery dumpster garbage that he had to go to therapy and process those feelings and figure out a way to make it up to his son.
I would think that honesty is probably the best policy. I think you gotta tell him.
I feel much better.
If that's the way Jonathan feels with a small mistake like that, it just shows that when it comes to the bigger, more serious things, he is definitely going to do the right thing when he realizes that he's fucked up.
Whoa now.
My other therapist allows me to swear.
Well, that's up to him.
After consulting with Dr. Greenberg and Stanley and Julie for advice, Jonathan bucks up and he admits that he cheated.
That first time when you picked Franz and that was cheating.
Yes.
How did you cheat?
You were sitting in front of the TV and I saw the reflection of Franz.
Off the TV?
Off the TV set.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. You know how to cheat really well.
Ben is a little bit salty over it.
I don't hate you, Dad. I'm bigger than that. It's only a childhood.
But it's quickly resolved and the two are back to joking with each other as normal.
You're not making this easy for me, Ben.
I understand, Dad, but I have to be hard on you.
Yeah.
After what you did to me, let's make it a whole weekend at the Hilton.
Okay.
Jonathan cares so much about how his actions affect Ben, and I just love seeing that. I know I've already said this, but I love the fact that Jonathan goes to therapy and presumably goes there to get advice on how to be a better dad, even though his son is already grown up. Now for the big mistake that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned earlier that Jonathan messed up Ben's care after Ben's dental surgery. It's a huge plot point in the episode Wisdom Teeth. See, Ben was prescribed both antibiotics and painkillers after surgery and was directed to take the pain meds every few hours as needed. Because dental surgery hurts like a
big old ball of bitch
after the freezing wears off, Ben starts feeling understandably miserable.
Really, the pain is too much. I can't concentrate on you talking. Just give me another pill and get out of my sight.
What's the magic word?
Now.
Here.
He keeps asking his dad to give him the painkillers and complains that they're duds. Jonathan gives Ben medication throughout the evening, but here's the kicker. He was giving Ben the antibiotics, not the painkillers. So not only was he giving his son the wrong meds, he was not even aware that Ben was still in ridiculous pain. Now I'm gonna cut Dr. Katz a bit of slack. Sometimes painkillers take a while to kick in, and I can understand him not wanting to accidentally overdose his son.
Ben, you had one an hour ago. I can't keep feeding you these pills.
I know, the pain is immense.
I think it just takes a while for these pills to kick in, and once they do, you'll feel fine.
I know Ben is an adult and has the mental capacity to take care of his own medications and to be aware of the labels and to be responsible for that. But anyways, Dr. Katz probably should have examined the bottles a bit more closely after the second or third time Ben complained about pain. And poor Ben. He fainted during the surgery because Dr. Zilber didn't freeze him properly.
Does that feel numb yet?
Mm-hmm. That injection hurt, but I don't feel any numbness yet. Should I get,
How about here?
Ow. Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Wait, Doctor, shouldn't you wait until the Novocaine kicks in before we go to the table saw?
Relax, Ben.
Uh-huh.
Open up.
Okay.
How freaking horrible is that? I had a root canal done on a bad tooth recently, and my dentist did everything correctly. When my dentist touched that tooth before numbing me, though, the shock of the pain through my lingual nerve made me yelp. Involuntarily, and I kicked, and I may have said son of a bitch. It hurt, and that was before the procedure even started. Thankfully, the numbness set in for me, and I was fine during the procedure, but Ben didn't have the mercy of numbness on his side. He went into shock, fell unconscious from the pain, and then was sent home to be given the wrong medication all night. On top of that, regular doses of antibiotics cause some people major stomach pain and digestive upset, and I could not imagine how Ben's gut handled a few days' worth of these antibiotics in a single evening. Mouth pain, stomach pain, and definitely some psychological pain, all wrapped up with a neat little bow, makes me really glad that Ben is just a cartoon character. I mentioned before, also, that Ben wakes his father at 4 a.m. for comfort, probably not all there mentally due to the pain and exhaustion. He was probably awake the entire time before that, hyper-focused on the throbbing in his head, the aching pits in his jaw where those teeth used to be, and the sore, slimy, probably stinging holes where those teeth used to be, and he just can't help but poke them with his tongue. You know how it is. If you've had this kind of surgery, you know. Eventually, Ben returns to bed and finally passes out. For an undetermined amount of time. We actually don't know what time it is when his dad wakes him up later. But when Ben does wake up later, his dad is standing there in his bedroom. Jonathan's holding the bottle of painkillers in his hand. He's very sheepish, and he sounds more reserved than usual when he asks how Ben is feeling.
Ben, you seem a little,
Yeah, I feel a little better. I mean, I got some sleep, and
good.
The pain has, subsided a little bit, although...
I'm so glad to hear that.
This is because Jonathan realized his mistake. He actually starts to say, before being cut off, he starts to say something about, I was up, we can maybe fill in this blank with, I was up very early, I was up ever since I realized my error.
Yeah, you don't look well.
No, well, first of all, I was up.
Something like that. We just know that Dr. Katz, after getting up at 4 a.m., he didn't sleep very well for the rest of the night himself. Ben is understandably pissed off when his father explains the mistake he made the night before with the medications.
You know those painkillers that the doctor gave you?
Yeah, those things were duds.
I was giving you the wrong pills, and I don't know how I could have done it, but you didn't take any. You were taking antibiotics all night.
How could you screw up like this, honestly?
Jonathan admits how embarrassing his mistake was, seeing as he is a doctor and should have known better.
How could you mistake the pain? You're a doctor.
I know, that's why it's doubly embarrassing.
How could you mistake painkillers for antibiotics? It says it right on the label.
Dr. Katz gives Ben the pill bottle, but Ben immediately throws it back at his dad, hitting him square in the face.
Thank you for the sublime torture. Here's my new theory. Pain brings clarity. Like, for instance...
Ow, Ben!
Nothing makes a parent feel worse than knowing they've hurt their child, even by accident. Ben is the light of Dr. Katz's life, so that ball of guilt would have been heavy when it dropped in his gut after realizing what he'd done. Despite that, Dr. Katz tells Ben the truth and doesn't blame any part of the error on his son, even though, like I said before, Ben probably could have been more responsible as he is mentally capable of keeping track of his own medications. Keep in mind, he's like 25, almost 26 at this point in the show. But Jonathan doesn't even mention that. He doesn't even say to Ben anything like, well, it was your medication, you should have been keeping track of it. Well, maybe you should have checked the labels. No, Jonathan doesn't do that. He doesn't say that. He apologizes and he asks his son how he can make it up to him, knowing that it would probably be very hard. Their on-screen interactions end there for the episode. But I was so happy to see Dr. Katz take responsibility for such an egregious error. I also am happy to see that Ben forgave his father. Does he outright say, I forgive you? Well, not on screen. And even with the sarcasm and the throwing of the pill bottle. I think that was Ben's way of showing, I'm pissed at you, but I forgive you. I doubt a cartoon dad like Jimmy Pesto would humble himself like that if he'd been the one to make this mistake with his kids. Simply put, Dr. Katz has always been there for Ben. He got custody of Ben after the divorce, raised him alone through Ben's teenage years, and always tries to stay close with him, even now that Ben is grown. He's been his son's pillar of support from day one. Jonathan has clear-cut routines each day, and Ben can predict when he'll be out for the evening, where he's at, and when his dad will be home. It's reassuring to know what someone's next move will be, and I think this gives Ben significant comfort in his relationship with his father. It's not just the physical presence that's consistent, though. Dr. Katz is predictable in his moods, his mannerisms, and in the way he normally responds to Ben.
Yeah, there's the yeah.
Ben knows that the same dad who left the house in the morning will be the same dad who comes home at night. He doesn't worry about what kind of mood his father will be in from day to day or hour to hour, and that kind of consistency is so important in forming a secure child-caregiver bond. Ben might tease his dad for how predictable he is.
The farina.
The farina, yes. The thinking man's oatmeal.
Dad, you are like so terribly predictable.
But deep down, he appreciates it. He needs it. He knows what times his dad is busy with patients and when he's most likely free to talk on the phone, and he knows that even if his dad is busy, he'll always find time to reconnect. I've talked at great length about what Roz may have been like, but I just want to say that she probably wasn't as consistent as Jonathan. Speculating again, but for all we know, her moods could have been all over the map, and her reaction to something on Monday could have been totally different than how she reacted the night before. Ben's feeling of safety around his father shows the huge contrast between Jonathan and Roz when it comes to their attachment style with Ben. Jonathan's always been there. Roz was largely absent. Jonathan being so consistent provides stability to their home environment, and it's that stability which allows Ben to try new things and make mistakes and grow as a person. If Ben's childhood was really as messed up as I think it could have been, then I actually understand why Ben doesn't feel ready to move out on his own. Living together post-Roz, Jonathan was finally able to provide the structure their family needed. Ben has the peaceful home environment he's always wanted, and the person he loves most is always there to provide the safety he so badly craves. And Dr. Katz always will be there. Those are my reasons why Dr. Katz is one of the best animated dads of all time, but what do you think? I only mentioned a few of Jonathan's good qualities. He has a lot, and I definitely left some things out of this video for the sake of time. What do you like most about Dr. Katz as a parent, and who's your favorite cartoon father? Let me and others know in the comments. I love reading what other people think. If you liked this video, you know what to do. Check out my other Dr. Katz videos if you'd like, and until next time, thanks for watching.